Hey spookers, Mr. Haunted here. First of all, I'm so sorry how long this video took. I was having problems with importing the recordings, but it's finally here. Anyway, one of these stories in this video is actually a personal story that happened to my family. If you guys could comment as to which story you think is mine, that would be great. Now, without further ado, let's begin. In 2014, something very creepy happened to me and my cousins on Halloween. For a little background information, during the time this happened, I was around the age of 8 and I've always loved going trick-or-treating. Filling my bag with a bunch of candy and eating it and trading candy was amazing, which was why Halloween was my favorite time of the year. Overall, trick-or-treating was a great experience. One Halloween, I was going trick-or-treating with my two cousins who we'll call Abby and Carlos. Abby was 17 and my other cousin Carlos was around the age of 10, so Abby would be the one watching over us while we went trick-or-treating. My parents and my cousin's parents were the type of parents who gave the rule of be back by this time or there will be a consequence. Neither of our parents played around, so we respected their rule and they said to be back by 10:30 at the latest as it was a school night. Anyway, we started to hit a few houses up my street that were obviously decorated with Halloween decorations, so we knew they had candy. After hitting about 5 houses, it was around 8 and our pillowcases were already almost half full. Throughout the night, we went to houses getting candy and we even went into a house that was supposed to be a haunted walkthrough house type thing, which was pretty cool for the most part. Anyway, fast forward about 30 minutes later, we come across a house and Carlos immediately jumps with excitement when he sees that there's a bolo by the front door. People rarely put out bowls in my neighborhood for trick-or-treaters, but it happens. When we got to the front door, we found no candy in the bowl, which was expected considering the fact that it was about 10 p.m. and Halloween started to die down and people stopped answering their doors. However, as we were getting ready to leave, we saw a light turn on in the house, so we figured that whoever was in there knew we were here. A few seconds later, a woman, I'd say in her mid-70s, answered the door. She greeted us with a smile and said that she had more candy but that it was down in the basement. She then said that she had trouble lifting things and asked us if we could help her get the candy from the basement so she could refill the bucket. We of course felt really bad for the woman and she looked tired and really looked like she needed help, but at the same time we were a little creeped out. Abby then said, sure, I'll help you. Just to make something clear, Abby was and still is the most sweetest and nicest girl you'd ever meet. She'd do things for people even if it sounded suspicious. So anyway, once Abby was approaching the door to go inside, she stopped and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, but I just realized what time it was. We have to get going because we have to be back by a certain time." The woman didn't say anything. She just stared at us in a very angry look as we walked down the street. Once we got back, Abby sent both of us inside while she talked to the parents. I didn't know what she was talking about, but decided to ignore it as it wasn't my business. A few years later, Abby and Carlos were having dinner at our house one night, and at one point in the conversation, I had for some reason brought up the Halloween with that old lady. Abby immediately looked at me with her eyes open wide and she said that she'd never go trick-or-treating again because of what she saw that day. Now that I was older, she revealed what really happened. She said that when she was about to go inside, she noticed something behind the woman inside the house. At first, she didn't know what it was as it was dark in the house, but she looked harder and realized that it was 2 or 3 men dressed in black wearing vendetta masks looking straight at her. She knew that she had to get out of there and so we left. Till this day, I'm very glad that she noticed those men, because I have no idea as to what would have happened to her had she gone into that house. Halloween should be a treat, not a trick. Alright, this happened just a few years ago on Halloween night. It was a Saturday, which meant that there would be more trick-or-treaters going to houses and they'd also be doing it for a long time as it wasn't a school night. My parents were going to a Halloween party with my younger brother and his friends. I wasn't really the type of person who likes to party, so my job would be to hand out candy to the trick-or-treaters who came to my door. I have to admit, it was a bit annoying having to get up from the couch constantly to answer the door, but whatever. Anyway, it was around 10:30 p.m. and Halloween was starting to die down, which was a relief for me, so I just sat back down on the couch and finished watching my movie. However, 30 minutes later, I heard another knock at my door. I let out a sigh and got up once again, thinking that it was probably the teenagers going trick-or-treating. I opened the door with a bowl of candy in my arms and was greeted to a man that was about 6'4" and was wearing a Freddy Krueger costume. I have to admit, it was a bit creepy considering that the costume was very well detailed and was probably expensive. I jumped as soon as I saw him, and then he started to laugh while taking off his mask. He said, while still chuckling, "Oh, hey, so I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to scare you." I laughed a bit and said it was okay. He then put out his pillowcase as if he wanted candy. Now, this guy looked to be in his mid-20s, and I thought it was a bit weird to be going trick-or-treating at that age, but it wasn't any of my business. As I was putting the candy into his bag, I saw something in his bag that sent a chill down my spine. Inside his bag was a large knife. Now, I'm not sure if this was real or not, but it did look pretty realistic. He said thanks and walked down the sidewalk. He seemed like a nice guy, but there was something slightly off about him, and I just couldn't put my finger on it. About an hour later, it was around 12 o'clock, and by then there were no trick-or-treaters. My mom and brother were surprisingly still at the Halloween party, but I was getting tired and decided to head to bed. I got ready and fell asleep almost instantly. However, I was woke to a knock at my window. I opened the blinds to see the same man dressed in that Freddy Krueger costume. I screamed and hid inside the bathroom hoping he would go away. Just then, I heard bangs at my front door and I knew it was only a matter of minutes before he was going to break it down. I yelled out, "I have a gun and the police are on their way, so get the hell out of here." That seemed to scare him off as there were no more noises. My mom came home soon after, but I never told her about the incident. I have other stories, but this is the scariest by far. This happened to my dad when he was around the age of 35. It was Halloween night, and my mom and sister and I were going to our good friend's Halloween party, which was always a blast. Unfortunately, my dad had to work the night shift at Toys R Us back when it was still in business, so he couldn't come with us. The people in our neighborhood wasn't a fan of giving candy to trick-or-treaters for whatever reason, so that was one of the reasons as to why we go to this party every year. Anyway, we get to the party at around 8 p.m. and my sister and I start going trick-or-treating with our friends. Keep in mind, all of the kids, including me, were around the ages of 8 and 9, so the parents had to go with us. We weren't too fond of the idea, but as long as we got candy, we were okay with it. Throughout the night, we hit houses left and right with our bags of candy being filled fast. We all were having a great time, for the most part. However, I remembered that we stopped at this one house, and after we finished getting the candy, we all turned around to see my mom on the phone sobbing while the adults were trying to calm her down, and us kids in our 8-year-old state didn't really seem to know or care as to what was going on. We then got back to my friend's house, and my dad came soon after. My mom and everyone else hugged him while they were still crying. My mom nor anyone else would tell us what had happened, so we all forgot about it. Fast forward a few years later, I was having breakfast with my mom, and for whatever reason I brought up the time when she cried on the Halloween night. She gave me a worried/sad face, and now that I was much older, she told me what really happened. My dad and 2 of his coworkers were putting everything in the store away and getting ready to leave for the night when the glass doors broke and 3 men wearing masks broke in the store. One of the men asked who the manager was, and since my dad was the manager, he was the one who raised his hand. The man went up to my dad and put a gun to his head and said these exact words, "Now, you have 10 seconds to open the register or I won't hesitate to shoot you." My dad thankfully remained calm, not showing any signs of fear or anger towards them. The men kept pushing my dad to open the register, but it was stuck. At this point, my dad and his coworkers are freaking out, but thank God the register opens. The men then take the money and were never to be seen or heard from again, and the police never identified the suspects. Till this day, I'm so grateful to have a dad and that he's alive because it's very possible he wouldn't have came home that Halloween night.